Well, this is really neat.
Oh, well, thanks.
This is R Duck Locomotive Works.
Right.
And their wood caboose. And Trip at R Duck made you a caboose.
He did. He designed one with my name on it because I've always liked caboose. I guess that's the right name for them.
Is it cabooses or caboose?
Caboose.
Let's stick with caboose.
Cabooses. Yeah. Anyway, I've always liked the end of the train.
Yes. Back when there was an end and it didn't just kind of trail off to nothing.
Right. Yeah, that was always a disappointment when they didn't have a caboose on the back of the train anymore.
Yeah, now they have a light back there called Fred.
Oh, gee. Fred just doesn't cut it for me.
No, there should be a caboose.
Right.
Anyway, this is the caboose that you built.
Right.
And you had Trip custom design logos and
the
stuff?
The logo for it, yes. And so one of it is my name, Karyn's Caboose, and then the Marysville branch, because that's an old branch line from where I'm from.
And we've done some, here's a link.
Right.
To, because we've explored
it
extensively.
Right.
But that's right in your old neighborhood.
My old neighborhood, yes. And it ended up down by the Big Rock Candy Mountain in Marysville, Utah. Yes.
And now there's a Caboose village there.
Yes, I found that before we met, and it was like, what in the world is this? You know, so I had to stop and see what it was.
It's a motel, if you will, all made out of cabooses and stuff.
Right, exactly.
It's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I love a wood caboose.
I do too.
And I prefer an offset cupola like this.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for me as long as it has the cupola. That's important for me.
Yeah, I'm not a bay window person.
No, it doesn't do a thing for me.
Even some of the logging, no.
It has to have the cupola.
It's got to have the cupola. For one thing, it's a fun place to ride.
Right, you can see forever up there.
Yeah, it's really fun. And you gave this guy something of a custom interior.
I did. I had to, you can build these in the natural wood state. They're sort of like a 3D puzzle to put together. They're all wood, laser cut wood pieces from a sheet of plywood. But I decided I wasn't going to paint it, and then it was like, I want to paint it. And then, of course, I got carried away and did more than paint it. So it's got a full interior. The very first thing that has to be built are the wheel trucks, and as you can see, there are several parts that have to interlock and fit together. They all punch out of the plywood, I guess you call it a tree. They punch out of that, and then there's our instructions that you do to put all of this together. Once both sets of wheel trucks are finished, then you can start attaching them to what would be the floor of the caboose. And they all interlock, and there's actually a bearing. If you look at that little center circle, it's a bearing so that the wheel trucks can move on the floor of the caboose.
I see you're using super glue.
Yes, I used the CA glue on most of the parts I needed to glue and make them stay in a hurry. And then I did use the Elmer's glue for some of the parts that didn't need to be, you could let them sit for a while to stay put.
I noticed that, the Elmer's and the super glue get along really well.
They do. One can sure kick off the other. And sometimes you do need to allow a little time for repositioning of a part. Now, this was about the time I decided, no, I want to paint it. So I decided not to attach that side piece and just leave it so I could lay it flat and paint it. So when you're painting raw wood, a lot of times the paint you're using wants to soak in. In this case, I wanted it to soak in to look like weathering. The same thing on the sides of the caboose. I wanted it to be more of a wash than an actual paint so that it looked a little bit weathered. So here I used a really fine brush, about like a couple of hairs, and painted the lettering. And it was amazing how where the lines are burned in with the laser tool, it helped the paint to stay put. I just used these simple acrylic paints. You can buy them at Walmart or any craft store, Joann's or a few others. And of course I watered some of it down so it's not so thick. And of course I also wanted some of it to look like metal, and I used they're a pen, and it's real paint that's in there, and of course just paint it with these pens that are silver or golden color, and they can also be purchased at Walmart or online. And then I painted the inside green. I'm not sure why all Caboose are green on the inside, but I decided to stick with tradition and paint this green. And as a contrasting color, a nice off-white for the chest here and my seats up in the cupola.
I love the padlock.
Yes, it has to be locked because all the treasures in the world are in that box. I always have little pieces of fabric left over from other projects, and of course they go into my What's It box. So I decided, well, we need bedding on the bed and a nice gingham tablecloth for the table, and calendars and coffee cups and creamer and spoons and things like that. Now it's much easier to add these little tiny adornments before the walls are put in. You can just reach in there much easier, even with tweezers if there's not a wall in the way. Next went the roof on. There's actual trusses, and these roofs are removable, so you have to follow the instructions to make sure that you don't glue something you're not supposed to. Now, one of the things I used on the roof was just printer paper from a computer. First of all, I sanded everything just as smooth as I could, and then I used Mod Podge to just glue printer paper over the wood, and then I could paint it for the roof, mix a smooth finish. This is when it's fun because I love being able to look through a model and see the interior.
Peeking through windows and doors.
Yes, you can actually be a window peeker and it's okay.
It's legal in this case. I wanted to set it here on just some of our regular track. It's a little broader in gauge than that. I think it's probably about a 1/2 inch scale standard gauge.
Okay.
I think that's what Tripp is using on all these models.
And I love your choice of colors on the outside.
Oh, I just started painting it that oxide red color, and then I don't know, I had to model Dirt the cat from the Nevada Northern Railway, and it was like, okay, I like his yellow color against that, so I'm going to paint the trim yellow in honor of Dirt the cat.
Honor of Dirt.
So here it is.
This is almost as Karyn's caboose, but it's Dirt's caboose
It
as
is.
well.
It
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
yes.
it's kind of his.
So we'll start out with Dirt, who he is riding on the back.
Yeah.
His memory. And that's symbolic because it might have been the end of Dirt's life, but he can see where he's been and he's certain to keep going. Dirt the cat, he was the official shop cat of the Nevada Northern Railway out in Ely, Nevada. He was born there and lived his whole life in the shop and became their official mascot. He's well loved across the country. A lot of people know about Dirt the cat, and I just love to go out and visit with him. But as it turned out, about the time I was working on this caboose, we had learned that he had passed away. He was getting to be quite a senior citizen cat. So I felt it was appropriate to add him onto my caboose as a mascot for my caboose. So what I use to make Dirt the cat is what is known as Sculpty Clay. It's a craft clay that you can sculpt it just like regular modeling clay, but you bake it in the oven and then it becomes hard. So I just created Dirt the cat like I've done a few other little critters and animals, painted him, and of course glued him to the back of the caboose.
And he looks just like Dirt, right down to the actual dirt.
Yes, I painted all of that on there and tried to recreate him the best I could.
They're going to be having a memorial service for Dirt
Right.
here in May, I think.
Right, the
And we're
most
planning
famous
to-
shop cat.
Yes, we're hoping to get out there.
Right, I'm hoping we can.
That would be really neat. Now, I know a lot of people just leave these bare wood, and there's that whole sort of debate when you're dealing with a wood model, better to paint it, better to leave it wood. And I think as long as you're being true to what it is, that's just the choice that you want to make. The only thing that I would say is some people think that when you're painting it, that you're turning it into more of a scale model.
Right, I've had some
And-
people comment on that. You know, it's like, are you going to take the wheel trucks out from underneath and turn it into something that goes on a railroad? And it's like, ooh, no, because that would be really, really, really hard to do. I'm losing one of my hand grabs
Oh
here already.
my.
And but because one part fits into the other as you're building this, think of it as a 3D puzzle. So if you start taking things apart underneath, it will lose its structural soundness right off the bat.
Well, and for me, you're sort of wandering away from
What this is.
from what it is.
Yes, this is
It's-
a wooden model. It's kind of thick. You notice how everything's a little thicker on it, like the hand grabs and everything. I've done a modification to the chimney for the stove inside, but the ladder that goes up on top, and it's all, you can see how thick that is. But it's thin for wood.
Yeah.
But it's all wooden. It's all laser cut wood that fits each little piece together one with the other.
And when you leave one of these in bare wood, that rarely comes up as a
As an
question.
issue,
Yeah,
right.
it's like, oh, well,
It's a wooden model.
it's a wood shelf model, and,
Right.
and it should just be what it is. But
Right.
then when you paint them, then people start going, well, maybe you want to run it.
Well, and I think it's because once it's painted, depending on how you paint it, it looks like it could run on a railroad.
Well, you weathered it and everything, and
I went overboard. Way overboard.
You went overboard?
Yeah, well, and I even had on the little it comes with the little marker lights, but I put little colored gems on the marker lights. I've gone that far with it, and little chains so that dirt doesn't fall off, and things like that. So, and then I had to go overboard. It does come with a full interior, but I went overboard on that too, right down to the hamburger.
Yes, a hamburger, a soda, and fries.
Yep, as well as coffee and a coffee pot on the stove, and I even had to paint the stove. So I'll show you the inside of this.
Yes.
So on all of these, the tops, they come off. If you assemble these right, they all come apart so you can see what's on the inside. I'm going to carefully tip this so that you can see my full interior. And I even put bedding on the bed and a tablecloth on the table and coffee and a coffee pot on the stove. I've put in calendars and pictures and the cupola. I mean, you've got to ride in style. This is my Caboose, don't forget. So it's done according to my taste. Upholstered seats in the cupola. It's all painted up there and everything. And anybody that knows the travels with me knows I need a ladies' room. No matter where I go, I have to admit I have to have a ladies' room. Mine is the one and only Caboose with a small powder room in it.
Well, I've kind of gotten past the idea of finding a tree or a bush. Civility.
Well,
civility.
Yeah, this has been with me since I was knee-high to a stink bug. We don't get too far from a facility.
Yeah.
So, because I know we don't put bathrooms in Caboose, but this one has a powder room.
Depends on the Caboose. We rode a Caboose once that had 3 bathrooms on it.
Oh, hey, yeah. You never know.
You just never know. You know my favorite thing on the interior?
What's that?
Dirt's food dish.
Yes, I actually put a little dish for him to have some food. And there's a bag of cat food for him too. And he's been up there. If you'll look, there's even little paw prints.
He's had muddy feet.
Yeah, well, he's
dirt.
He's got dirt from the waist down. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a cat.
He's covered with cinders.
Exactly.
And dirt and filth.
Locomotive filth, and so he's up there getting him some food. And there's little cat tracks inside too. So, yeah, this has been my wild invention. I have had fun. Just letting my imagination run wild with this.
This is awesome.
It's been a fun build, and I like the way that all these come apart.
And I can sort of understand why some people said, well, is it a working model? Because it starts to look like a working model.
It looks like it could,
Yeah.
but
Especially when you put the weathering on it. It's
Well-
like, well, now it really looks like
it should be out on the track.
like it should be out on the track.
But it will have a nice safe spot.
But no,
on
it's
display.
a shelf model. It's
It
a
is.
static model. It's,
Right. Well, and as you can see, these things they're made out of wood. They're fairly delicate, really. Not that they don't build, rail cars and Caboose out of this laser cut wood, but the underneath would be. I'll quickly show the underside of this so that people understand why it would be impossible for this to work on an actual railroad. I've got the wheel trucks painted and everything, but they all interlock into the floor, if you will, of the Caboose.
Yeah.
So the minute you start disassembling all that, you've got a mess. You'd have to figure something out long before all that was ever put on. And I don't know, my theory is if you want to build something like that on a set of real working trucks, just order the caboose part sans the wheel trucks, and maybe you can make it work.
Or just get a
kit.
kit, that's, get something from Ozark or something that just builds up. And this is exactly what it was intended to be, in spite of all the additions.
Right.
Some of the additions that I really like is it has, on the original model, the roof just kind of ends at the wall, and you've added these little overhangs.
Well, I didn't like the way that this ended right here for me. I'm just kind of persnickety that way. So I used some of the little pieces left over on the wood tree. These all punch out of a little wood tree pattern, just like a model car or something, and just glued some extra pieces on either side to make the little visors over the caboose window, the cupola.
So there's a few things here that aren't stock to
They're
the
not
kit.
stock, and I
the
need
chains,
trim here.
you've got trim,
well,
chains,
like I say, I
details.
really went overboard on some of it. The material and all of that doesn't come with it either. I just keep scraps from other models that I make, and I have a what's it box, and I just find things in my what's it box. Some of the stuff here, like the paperwork, I've just printed off the computer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I've often thought that modelers and motion picture editors share one thing in common.
What's that?
They never throw anything away.
No, I've got right down there. There's 2 full boxes full of gadgetry.
A really good film editor, you'll say, I don't suppose you still have any footage from that movie you worked on 30 years ago. Oh yeah, let me grab it. Never throw anything away, because you just never know when you might need it.
Well, and then I did a little reworking of the chimney part of where the little wood burning stove is. I just wanted to put a little metal, like the little smoke deflector on it. So I did some changing that way. But I mean, it's just fun to put these together. Aside from putting them together, the instructions are pretty good. You can follow those right along. Like I say, it's like a puzzle. But then once you start getting it put together, or it is put together, let your imagination run wild. These things are fun to build.
Speaking of the instructions, it's a little different the way they've done the instructions for these kits, and that's that they're online instructions.
Online. I haven't had a problem. I mean, you can print them off. It's like War and Peace if you do. But even on my cell phone, I was able just to bring up the site and follow it as I was. It wasn't a problem. I didn't have to print anything off. Even using a cell phone, I just have to zero in on it and
just
make sure I'm...
Pinch and zoom, and zoom.
You identify the little parts that go on. But
they've got the blueprints, they call them.
And I know zero really about trains. I've learned since we've been together, and there's nothing like learning about something than to build one.
Yeah.
So then after I build it, I go, oh, that's what that's called, or that's what this is for, and this is where it goes. So, and I made some mistakes on here. You get a bonus point if you notice my mistakes and mention it in the comments, because I know where they are, and I messed up because one piece of wood that one of the things I was doing before I started painting it was I was putting the pretty side out, because where the laser burns it, it's not so pretty on the one side. But I forgot to flip one part, and so I will show you the caboose and take a really good look to see if you can see my mistake, and mention it in the comments below. Like I say, I'll bet you the more advanced caboose people will know my mistake if you look really hard at my configuration. I made a mistake and I learned from it. So that's the educational part of all this. So if you can find my mistake, mention it in the comments.
Sweet.
I know what it is now.
Yes. I would try to do that, but if I started trying to categorize all of my mistakes.
This one's a pretty good monumental one. I'll show you this side too. I mean, if you look. I boo-booed. Now I'll show you the side with Dirt the cat. Yeah, mention my mistake, and I know what I did wrong now, but I'm not taking it apart,
I'm not saying it.
Okay, but I know what it is. And
I'll have to read the comments and see if somebody
see if
else
somebody
spots it,
gets an A.
I'm sitting right here and I'm not seeing it.
Okay. There's a mistake.
There's a mistake.
Next time, don't always put the pretty side out. That's the logic to that story.
Well, we need to build more of these.
Right, and we will.
We will. So that will be upcoming. In the meantime, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please hit the subscribe button.
And right while you're doing all that stuff, don't forget to go over to R Duck Locomotive Works and look at his lineup, because these are fun. I mean, they say 14 and up. it's a good project for any beginning modeler at any age, really.
And link
Little
in the
help.
description, so you'll
right.
find it that way. So
Right.
yeah, it's and they make a lot of different models.
Oh, they do. I'm addicted.
It's very eclectic mixture of things
Right,
that they do.
right. I can't wait for him to build a passenger car. Hint, hint.
Hint, hint. Wouldn't that be fun?
A passenger car. That's my next favorite.
An 1880 vintage passenger car.
Because I could turn that into a lot of things.
Yeah, I can think of a lot of fun to have with them. Well, anyway, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please become a subscriber, or maybe even consider being a member of the channel,
right.
which, sends a couple of dollars our way. But at least if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. For one thing, then that way you can be notified when we put up some more R Duck builds.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the easy way to subscribe is with the blue button. Are we ready? Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet, and we hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you here on Tuesday.
Right.
We'll see you then.
We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.